The U.S. Department of Energy is cleaning up the Oak Ridge Reservation of residual hazardous and radioactive contamination left over as a result of decades of nuclear energy research. Much of that work has been influenced by the Oak Ridge Site-Specific Advisory Board, a citizens panel that provides independent advice and recommendations on DOE's cleanup operations. You're welcome to attend the meetings and be part of this important work. For more information.
Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and start. Glad everybody came out tonight. So I would like to go ahead and open up for comments from Eric. Go ahead and jump in here.
Hey, good evening all, and thank you all for being here. Couple of updates, actually a few since I think I was here last. So I'll start with the EPA Region 4 Administrator, Kevin McCumber. He made his first visit to Oak Ridge just a little while ago, which was really nice. He's only been in his role, I think, since just earlier this year, so he's pretty new to the position. I think he was telling us there's something like 8 states in EPA's Region 4. I think he's been to all of them at least 2 or 3 times now. So it was a fantastic visit with him, a good start to the relationship with the new Region 4 administrator. And he is really excited about reindustrialization and reuse of brownfields after cleanup. So I think we're going to continue that discussion with him, and I think we'll see him on future visits to the site. While he was here, we also celebrated the signing of the record of decision for soil cleanup in Zone 1 at ETTP. I think really what's significant about this is the 4th record of decision that we've signed over the past 3 years. So quite a bit of progress there. It's always nice to do something like that with you get a new Region 4 administrator or senior official in the EPA. It's a nice way to start off the relationship on a very positive foot. So Oak Ridge National Laboratory, we're making a lot of progress, and I actually have a video here to show you if you'll indulge me and let you show you some work that we recently did. We have a number of sodium shields that are stored at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. I think you all probably know the history of those fields better than even I do, but just recently we were actually able to ship our first shields down to a facility in Texas where the shields are being treated and disposed. And I was able to actually go down to Texas to that facility while they were doing the treatment of the first shield and actually watch it in progress. And so we've got a video that's going to show you just real quick what that looked like. Maybe, yeah. Pause it there. Awesome. So it's a really straightforward process, and what you saw there in very compressed fashion was the shields themselves are basically placed in a large box. The box itself becomes the disposal container for the material. Once they're placed in the box, glass forming materials, in this case silica and other things they use in their recipe, are placed over and around the shields, and then they put very large electrodes into the glass forming material, and they heat it up to about 900 or 1000 degrees for a period of time. And what they're trying to get to is a melt where they get convective mixing of all the materials. So they want to ensure the shields themselves have melted and they're getting good distribution of sodium through the melt. After a period of time, which is not too long, it could be 48 hours or more of actual melting, they have a cool down period. They actually bolt a lid on top of the box after the materials cooled down, and then they dispose of it right there at their disposal facility. This is all in Andrews, Texas, where Waste Control Specialist is located, and this is where the work was actually done. Veolia has a technology called geomelt, which is vitrification, so they're essentially using vitrification. And we think this shows a lot of promise for treating all of the sodium shields that we have here at Oak Ridge. The next ones we're going to send are some of the larger shields, because I think the real proof of concept here is for them to be able to do size reduction on the large shields. And that obviously, if that sounds like cutting the shields, that's exactly what we're going to be doing, is cutting them into small enough size to get into that box that you see. And so Veolia has a really good process that they walked us through when we were there. They've got a pretty good plan for how they're going to do the size reduction and do the additional. So once we get through those additional melt, I think we'll be in a place to talk to Veolia and waste control specialists about getting all of the shields down there for treatment and disposal. So hopefully that is something that we're going to have off of our books as a liability in the not too distant future.
I think that's,
Is that it? Is that the end of it? I think that was actually my major update. So just a few points. So thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you, Aaron.
can I ask one tiny little question?
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
many shields do you have to deal with?
I believe altogether there are 43. I think there are 33 sodium shields and 10 that are lithium hydride. So 43 altogether. In all various shapes and sizes.
Sizes.
I mean, some of them you saw are, I mean, I think you want to pick it up or carry it, but I mean, they're smaller, small enough to get in the box. Some are very large. I mean,
This is the beginning of a long.
absolutely. Absolutely. But once we get that proof of demonstration done, once we see that they can do the size reduction and safely handle the shields, because obviously it's going to entail exposing the sodium in those shields to, to an environment. And you want to keep them away from water and air as much as you can. So that's why Veolia and waste control specialists, they're looking at how they're going to create an inert environment to actually do the cutting of the shields and how they're going to get them into the box. But they have a really good process. And once they can prove that they can do it, I think we'll have a pathway.
My question is, how many decades have they been sitting on the reservation?
Roger, you probably know.
Before going,
He knows the answer.
at least,
Long
at
time.
least 4 or 5.
Yes,
I was
yeah,
gonna
these are very old.
I was gonna say 4.
It's a major accomplishment to start this work.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
It is. And you think in terms,
We gotta do it.
yeah.
right, and you think in terms of liabilities, this is a big liability for the department and for the environmental management program. I mean,
Yeah.
just to essentially store them, in a warehouse. So being able to be done with that liability is extremely important. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
And there were a lot of tough things they tackled with this project. I mean, obviously, how do you actually deal with the sodium shield itself?
Mhm.
But then the other question was, how do you get it there?
Yeah.
Transporting these things was actually, I think it took them 2 years of working through DOT regulations. to do it.
Mhm.
And the really big shields, imagine a hockey puck that is 10 feet in diameter and about 4 feet thick.
Yeah,
Those are I think there are 2 or 3 of those shields of that size.
Yes.
Transporting those is going to be, there's a lot of head scratching that's going to have to happen to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So it really helps so that we can now have a place to send it that they can treat it. So.
yeah.
Right. And moving on, open to comment from Roger.
He covered it all.
All right, Christoph?
Good afternoon. This is the annual meeting. We're gonna be presented with some work plans from DOE. I would like to stress out the importance of the SSAB. State of Tennessee is working in concert with DOE and EPA on a cleanup. The input from the SSAB is very valuable. We are here to answer any questions and provide input.
And Boston?
EPA?
EPA?
Looking, I can't read the names. So I'm
Yeah.
useless.
Yeah, hi, I'm Samantha
Are-
Foster. The main point we wanted to bring about was, as some of you are aware, on August 8th, DOE notified the EPA and TDEC it intends to make a public announcement in September regarding property eligible for transfer. DOE's letter also mentions delisting from the NPL, although it didn't specify the property. EPA supports the transfer of property for reuse as it's part of our mission. But this letter raises some concerns about DOE's plans, and EPA will be engaging in further discussion with DOE. EPA will clarify the process for delisting portions of a site from the NPL and the requirements for transfer of contaminated property under CERCLA. EPA has recently transferred or has recently discussed with TDEC our concerns, and we will be following up with DOE in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much. Now moving forward, I would like to open this up to Roger to go over the ORSSAB project overview.
Thank you. Some of this, for those who've been here more than a year, you've heard this before. Hopefully please don't fall asleep on me. For those who have not been here, I'm hoping that this will be enthralling and interesting. So this will be what we're gonna do is just a sort of a general so I'm trying not to break it. Okay. So the Office of Environmental Management National is made up primarily of 15 active cleanup sites. This is you hear us talk about some of these: Hanford, Savannah River, Paducah, Portsmouth, and then a variety of other sites. These are most all these sites were directly related in some form or fashion with the Manhattan Project, or very shortly thereafter with the continuing development during the Cold War. Oak Ridge represents one of the largest sites. Dollar-wise, we are the third largest site. Hanford and Savannah River have the largest budgets, and then we come in third, and then I believe Idaho is not too far behind us, or was. I think their budgets are going down because they're getting more completion. Our site historically was made up of roughly 32,000 acres that were owned by the Department of Energy, or the predecessor Atomic Energy Commission. Over time, we have, as you're aware, we've been transferring that property. So the number actually I think at this point, we're under 32,000. The whole reservation was established as part of the Manhattan Project during the 40s. Army showed up, basically condemned all the property, moved everybody out, and constructed the three facilities that you see here. One was the Oak Ridge Gaseous Diffusion Plant, ETTP, East Tennessee Technology Park, originally called the K-25 site, which was also the home of the K-25 building, which we've seen many times. The other site was the Oak Ridge National Lab, which at the time was called the Clinton Engineering Works. That facility was established to determine how to produce plutonium and then how to separate plutonium. And then the Y-12 facility was actually originally constructed to separate pure enriched uranium through the electromagnetic process separation, which is, you'll hear a lot of times we talk about the calutrons, the calutron barrels. That was all at Y-12. After the war, K-25 site continued gaseous diffusion. That was the process that the government decided was probably the most useful. Oak Ridge National Lab continued on its mission and expanded into other sciences and energy research. And then Y-12 eventually became a Center for National Defense and National Security Development. They continued on with the Cold War mission of weapons development and production. So our main mission, EM's main mission here number one overall is protection of human health and the environment, is the cleanup, is getting these things out of the environment where they could potentially pose a risk to the public and to the environment. Our second and close behind is to further the mission of both ORNL and Y12. For those that have been on the tour, you've seen Y12. It's crowded. They need more space. They can't expand out, so they really have to expand in. We are working diligently trying to help find that space, tear down the old buildings, clear the property so that they can build their new facilities. And then last is, and we've talked about this a lot and you've heard a lot about this, it's making land available for future use, reindustrialization, land transfers, things like that. And you've heard us talk, and you've seen it in the papers, companies such as Kairos, TriSoX, UltraSafe, a lot of these companies, they're all locating on property that where we have cleared it from the MPL site and have transferred the property. How do we do this? Well, first of all, this is not cheap. This is an expensive endeavor. So we have to rely on congressional appropriations. One of the things you'll hear us talk about from time to time is being investment worthy. What that means is when Congress gives you money, you have to be able to demonstrate that you're using that money to its full potential. Oak Ridge has been doing that. We've been doing it very well. One of the metrics that we use is called earned value, where you measure how much work are you getting done for each dollar of money that you receive. We actually have an earned value of over 1.0. What that means is for every dollar we get, we actually do more than $1 worth of work. That is really, that's your tax dollars. So when you pay $1 in tax, you're doing more than $1 worth of work with that dollar. So that has filtered back to our appropriators at Congress. And as you can see, we have, while it does vary a little bit, these are some of the highest budgets that we've ever seen. So we are proving ourselves to our appropriators that we can do this work well. And they are rewarding us by giving us more money, which allows us to do the work faster. So.
I'm sorry.
No. Yes.
The 2026 presidential budget.
Yes, so enacted means that's the budget that was approved by that. So the process is the president proposes a budget, gives that budget to Congress. The House and the Senate then go off on their separate ways and they come up with budgets. They then do what's called a conference. They get together and come up with a unified budget from that represents everything that Congress as a whole, the House and the Senate. And then that becomes the enacted budget. The president's budget quite frequently is, in the past, is lower.
Yeah.
And then Congress, and depending on the year, sometimes it's the Senate, sometimes it's the House. Both of them give us more money. Sometimes the Senate gives us a lot more, sometimes the House gives us a lot more.
Okay.
But that is, the enacted is the amount of money we actually got that year. We don't know for 2026 how much money we're actually going to get. That's what the president's proposal is, $635 million.
And was there a particular reason why he cut 60 million out?
Actually, if you go back and you look at what the president's budgets are for the past 10 years, they're just always lower.
Okay.
It's no one particular project that seems to get hit. It is across the board, like, this project doesn't need that much. This one doesn't need that much. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no one project that gets targeted. It's just a overall, and Congress passes up.
Doesn't hurt that we have appropriators from Tennessee on the.
Yeah, so the congressman for our district happens to be the chair of the House Energy and Water Committee that does the budget for Oak Ridge. That definitely is very helpful. In the past, Senator Alexander before he retired, was co-chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. That helped a lot for Oak Ridge. So we've been very fortunate in that sense.
Before we go on from this slide, we do have an EPA question.
Oh, yes. Sorry, Samantha.
No, it's okay. I was just wondering if outfall 200 is going to be covered.
It is part of this budget. Yes. There's money in the budget for that,
Okay,
the president's proposal.
thank you.
So once we get the budget, then what do we do with it? So we have developed here in Oak Ridge, what we call our program plan. It's not enough to get money. You have to have a good way of spending it and executing your program. And so what we've done is we've established 4 goals that this plan comes out every 2 years. You all actually can get a copy. Actually, I think they do get a copy. Those goals are, and these are not entirely in order of priority, but somewhat. So the first goal is complete the cleanup at ETTP. We want to be out of ETTP and transition that to long-term stewardship. We've done all the soil cleanup. We now are working on the groundwater, and we're, as you can imagine, on any project of that magnitude, there are always loose ends that we are trying to tie bows on. So we're working on that. Goal number 2 is reduce the radiological risks at ORNL. For those that were on the tour, when we went through the old central campus area, you saw some of the old buildings. We talked about how a lot of the hot cells are very contaminated. These buildings, most of them were built in the 40s. We've managed to keep them taped together for a long time, but it is time for them to be removed so that they don't have an adverse impact on ORNL's future mission of exascale computing, energy research, and things like the SNS facility on top of the ridge. Those need to be executed without the worry that one of their old facilities is going to contaminate one of the new ones. The third goal is reduce environmental risk at Y12. Now, we just talked about this involves clearing the footprint of Y12 so that Y12 can continue its mission out here. And then the 4th goal is ensure that, and this really is related to all the other goals because we have to have this, is ensure that we have adequate on-site waste disposal. Make sure that we have, as we tear all these facilities down and as we dig up these contaminated soils, we have to send that someplace. And it is not economically or practical for us to send that all out west. There's political considerations. It's just logistically, it's not possible. It actually would end up drawing out the cleanup here for so many more decades. And we don't think it's worth the long-term risk to this area to keep these things waiting while we ship everything out west. It's much better to have an on-site disposal facility. So those are the things that we're working toward as far as goals.
Roger, how many years are anticipated to finish the job for the environmental management organization?
The current, so I'll say this, the current cleanup schedule that's in the end, which is the circle cleanup, goes out to the 2040s. I think we are probably going to have to extend that. There are things that are turning out to be harder and more expensive, longer term care than we had anticipated. That extended. And then there's long-term stewardship issues of, there are some things that we can't clean up for either security reasons or there's not enough money to do it. So there will have to be some kind of monitoring of those things. We will make sure that they don't present a risk. But, many of you have heard the term brownfield. That is a legally viable alternative to complete cleanup. It's clean it up to a use that you can use it where the users aren't at risk.
Yeah.
And for us, that means cleaning up a lot of things to what we call industrial use. It does mean that, no, you can't go out and build a school or daycare or residence on these areas, but you could build a business and operate a business, an industrial business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think with all the nuclear renaissance and the companies coming in, that the EM mission for cleanup is going to be over very soon or over now.
No.
And is far from the truth.
Yeah, one of the issues we talked about here and that we still are trying to tackle is the long-term stewardship issue.
Yeah.
There is a part of DOE called legacy management that was set up to do that. When they set up legacy management, they did not have Oak Ridge in mind. They had some of the smaller sites that have a much neater end state, and Oak Ridge doesn't have that neat end state. Part of the reason is legacy management was set up to do long-term stewardship for what we call closure sites. These are sites that once the cleanup is done, that is it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that's going to go on there. Eventually, for instance, Hanford is considered a closure site. It has no more active mission, really. As we've talked about, we've got a lot of active mission here that has no foreseeable end. ORNL and Y12 do not have an end date at all. So it gets very long-term stewardship becomes very complicated.
So the EM program is not going away anytime soon.
No? Is that the right answer? Yeah, no.
No, as far as I know.
Yeah. I don't think there is a plan for the sunset EM program. Yes, ma'am.
I remember we had talked before, when you turn a site over, say to what are those?
Legacy management.
Yeah, no, not
No.
legacy management. When we.
Oh, for property transfers?
Right, for
Yes.
property transfers.
Yep.
Like what is the windmill, the wind turbine place, for example?
Yep.
You said that it's their responsibility. It's whoever buys it, owns it, runs it, it's their responsibility. But if they find something legacy there, that we still have to stay on top of it. Do we have to monitor that, or is it their responsibility to let us know if there's an issue?
It's actually both. I mean, I know that's not a really great answer, but the answer is yes, both organizations. DOE under CERCLA, it helps understand under CERCLA, we are responsible for our waste in perpetuity.
Okay.
Our responsibility never ends for our waste. If that waste is left in place because it's not presenting a risk where it is still our waste. If anything ever changes to where that waste would present a risk, we have to come back and clean that up. If it is something that we left behind that does not present a risk, like subsurface concrete, not contaminated, just subsurface concrete, then we work with the landowner to make sure that it is handled appropriately, things like that. And we are in the process of finalizing that process. How does that actually work?
Oh, well, yeah, because I wanted to know what do you budget for? How do you even budget for something like that?
You don't. And you really hope that it doesn't cost a lot. And that's one reason you want to make sure that you do your cleanup really well on the front end. Is to make sure that you have a high level of confidence that you're not leaving anything in place that's going to come back and bite you later.
But that would still fall under legacy management if it did come back and bite you?
It falls under so the CERCLA liability is associated with the federal government. So somebody from the federal government, most likely DOE, and really probably EM, since we're the ones who do this kind of work, would have to come back and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so here's what we've been doing. As we've talked about frequently, the first site that we addressed was ETTP, the Oak Ridge Gaseous Diffusion Plant. The photo on the left was a photo from the early 80s when the facility was still active. It had over 500 buildings that covered an area, the equivalent of over 225 football fields. We've talked about before, the K-25 building itself was 42 acres under roof. The K-31 and 33 building combined were over 50 acres under roof. And then there's two more gaseous diffusion buildings, and then all the support buildings. We have finished all demolition on the site. We have finished all the soil excavations that are needed to comply with the industrial land use designation. And we are now in the process of beginning to address the groundwater issues. But we've gotten to the point where all the property that is eligible for transfer is either has been transferred or is in the process of being transferred. Not all the property is eligible, mostly for security reasons. There are a couple of burial grounds that we're probably never going to be, we may never be able to transfer. We're looking into that today.
What percentage of that, the entire property at ETP were you able to transfer?
You're making me do math.
I'm sorry.
Hold on, I can do it. I can.
It's late.
I want to say, let's see, 2,000. Well over 90%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the burial grounds aren't that big. They're fairly small acreage. And if you include the area of zone 1 and zone 2 is the major industrial area, then zone 1 was the outer part of the site that never really was. But if you take all that, I'm gonna say it's 1,800 acres total, something in that neighborhood. And the area of the burial grounds is less than 10% of that. So, yeah, no, it has been a lot of property that's been available for transfer. Which I'm glad you asked, because that is where we go next. So a lot of what we have done has enabled the transfer of property for, and a lot of these names you've seen in the paper, property out of the federal hands and into private development or into uses other than for other uses such as recreational use. Let's see if I can top buttons the pointer.
Put down.
Okay, so here's ETTP over here. Most all that property has been transferred, and what has not been transferred is property that is in the hands of the National Park Service or some other entity in its final disposition. This large area up here is what we call the Black Oak Ridge Conservation Easement. That is a recreational area that was transferred to the management of it was transferred to TWRA as part of the Lower Watts Bar natural resource damages. We are in the process of transferring most of that actual ownership to TWRA. This area right here is what you often hear is called the Horizon Center. It is both industrial and environmental areas interspersed. That's where TriSoX, BWXT is getting ready to build a facility there. Kinetrix they're going to build a facility there. All told, this is not actually accurate. TriSoX, their first phase is 400 jobs. If they complete all 3 phases of their development, which they intend to do, apparently, is that just TriSoX by itself will be somewhere around 1,100 to 1,200 jobs. And then Kinetrix will have a facility there with over 100 jobs that will support them. BWXT is building a facility for Y12. They'll have close to 100 jobs. That's all just right in this area. Across the road, SSP2, many of you probably have seen in the news, a company called Arano is going to build an enrichment facility there for fuel. They're going to enrich uranium to a level called HALEU, high assay low enrichment. Is the type of fuel that all the new small modular reactors will be used. Down here, this is the old breeder reactor site. It's actually owned by TVA. That is also where they're planning on building their small modular reactor. At least the first one. They have plans possibly in the future to build another one there. So there's a lot of this property that has been developed for industrial uses. The windmill company is located right here. And a lot of this occurred because of the company that actually owns this property. That is a company called Koki Pharma. They bought that property a number of years ago with the intent of building an isotope production facility there for medical isotopes. For a variety of reasons, Koki was not able to fulfill that. But that was the first domino in the process. Once they came, it was soon after other companies were like, what's this company know about Oak Ridge? They would come here and they would find that this was a really good place to build. And it has been just one company after another, as I mentioned here, Orano, TriSoX, Kairos, UltraSafe. Actually, that job number for UltraSafe is very low. They've now expanded to well over 100 jobs. So these are companies, and these are all really good jobs. I mean, they don't necessarily require a college education, but for somebody with a high school education, a lot of these pay very well. This is a really good feature for our area.
Have they started hiring any of them or?
Actually, UltraSafe is not only hiring, they have hired, they're operational, they've been operational. They produce fuel for small modular reactors. Kairos is beginning to hire for their they're in the middle of construction, so they're hiring a lot of construction workers. They are actually already starting to hire people for the actual operations of their demonstration reactor. Orano, I don't believe they have. I don't know the status on them. TriSoX has had a job fair where they have, I think, have begun to hire some of their initial employees. And then, of course, TVA, they've got a bunch of people already.
Yeah.
But I don't think TVA hasn't even done groundbreaking yet. They are closing in on their NRC construction license, I believe. But once they get that, they will start construction, and that'll be a lot of activity out there.
This is the first time I've seen a map with where they're proposed to be located.
Mhm. Yep. They chose the breeder site because back in the 70s, they did a lot of site breeder reactor.
Mhm.
And of course, that went away. When the site's still prepared, it's
Yeah.
level. I mean, it's well suited for what they want to do.
Yeah.
You have an online question?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Samantha. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to point out that there are portions of ETTP that haven't completed construction yet. So it's not all eligible for transfer
That
until,
is correct. We have not finished all the documentation we need to complete transfers. We have done all the field work.
right,
There's a series of documents that have to be first to be approved by TDEC and EPA. Those are phase construction completion reports that say we're done with this area. And then once we have that, then there's a process where we have to go through our headquarters to do a document called a covenant deferral request. And EPA in the end has to approve that. And then the state also has to have a signature from the governor that the transfer is approvable. Actually, the governor, but he delegates that to the commissioner. TDEC. So, yes. At ORNL, part of our objective there is a lot of the buildings all the buildings in red are scheduled at some point for demolition. That will clear the central campus area. A lot of that work is focused on the old research reactors and isotope production labs. You'll hear us talk about isotope circle. That is a series of small hot cells and glove box buildings that they've done a lot of work over the years. We have to get that cleaned out and cleared. And then when we were out there, we talked about the LGWO, the central gas, the main stack, and getting that all disconnected. That'll have to be taken care of. But a lot of this will hopefully occur over the next 4 years. And so our big thing that we talk about is changing the skyline. That's the thing that people really notice. It's great to go out and we have to dig up soil and dig a hole and then backfill it. But what people really notice is when those big stacks are gone, when the buildings are gone. And this is a really good example. Back in 2022, these are 4 of the reactors that are in the 2022 picture. Those are 4 of the research reactors that were located at ORNL. This one right there that I'm pointing to, that's the graphite reactor. That's the first production scale reactor ever built. This one here is what's called the Oak Ridge Research Reactor, which we'll talk about in a minute. We're in the process of cleaning that one out. This was the intensity test reactor. And then this was what was called the bulk shielding reactor. Today, the low intensity test reactor and the bulk shielding reactor are completely gone. Those are the first two reactors that DOE has ever completely demolished. I will say they were smaller than some of the big reactors at Hanford, but still quite an accomplishment to demolish and clean out and take care of a reactor. The Oak Ridge Research Reactor is in the process of being done. This is a picture of, that's actually but that's the half of the reactor vessel that was in a large pool. I believe that's the top half that was taken care of back in 2024. We have actually also now removed and disposed of the lower half. So the reactor vessel itself is gone. There's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot, as you can tell, there's a lot of structure and other things inside the building that have to be taken care of. But that is, we are on our way there also. One of our really one of the stories that we really like to tell is the getting rid of the U-233 inventory as a type of isotope of uranium that is not very stable. It was experimented with for a lot of different purposes back in the 60s and early 70s. The national inventory of it is at ORNL. It is EM's responsibility to dispose of that. It was becoming a very large and costly project until somebody realized that one of the decay products that comes out of U-233 is an isotope called actinium 225. Thank you, Charles. Which has a huge use in cancer research and cancer treatment. And it comes almost solely from U-233. So a company called TerraPower and Isotech approached DOE and said, if we pay for getting this stuff out, will you let us have it? It has turned out to be an extremely good example of private government partnership. It's everybody's getting something out of this. The taxpayers are getting a huge savings on disposition of the U-233. And at the same time, these companies are getting a profitable product that will serve, innumerable people. One of the presentations that will be done this year will be Sarah Schaefer, who is the head of Isotech, will come and do a presentation. She'll go into the details of this. This is huge. It's just taking a liability that's been on our books for a long time and actually turning it into an asset. And what we're finding is there are more and more chances for things like this. Bug 500 was a radiological source that was at ORNL for a long time. We had no idea what to do with it. We couldn't ship it anywhere, couldn't dispose of it because the activity was too high. A group of UT grad students got together, formed a company, came to DOE and said, if you'll give that to us, we'll take care of it for you. They took it and repurposed it and are making small RTGs out of it for the military and for NASA. Again, a waste that we didn't know how to take care of is now being used for a useful purpose. So we're finding more and more opportunities like this. And these are things that really help us, again, going back to being investment worthy. Yes.
How much uranium is left?
I cannot tell you that.
Well, I figured, but ballpark,
I cannot discuss that. I'm sorry.
So, well, the reason I ask is because, if these other companies are gonna take it, I'm sure they can only take a certain amount at a time is there a way to get rid of it in bulk, or do you just kind of have to feed it into the system over time?
Those are excellent questions.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Moving on to Y12. Y12, again, like we discussed, we need to clean up the site to make it available for Y12's future missions. The buildings in red are currently the ones that we have under our identified in a scope for EM. It's very important to understand we don't own all those buildings, and that is one of the things that we're having to work with Y-12. They still occupy some of the buildings. They have mission needs in those buildings, some of them. And we have to coordinate our cleanup with them moving out. And their mission changes, and so their end dates change, and that means we have to adjust our cleanup, and that is a not a trivial thing to do at times. So we're working on that with them. We are finding solutions to those problems, and we still have a lot of work to do there. So at Y-12, some of the things where we've demonstrated how we can do it was the demolition of the old biology complex. It's a fairly significant size footprint. Y-12 came to us and said they needed space for what they call their lithium processing facility. We identified this area as a potential for that. We moved it forward in our cleanup schedule to accommodate this. Yeah, and went out, demolished the building, cleared the footprint. It has been a real lessons learned for us. How to work with Y-12, and then also how to work with TDEC and EPA. There were some things that there was miscommunications, but in the end, we cleared the site to. I can't go back. I cannot go.
You should be able to go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, the button. Well, we got that is the site today, or actually, it looks even better than that. They've actually already started. They've already started construction and getting the site ready for construction of the facility. But it's a demonstration of when we all work together, there's so much we can accomplish. And, it's not just the three parties of the FFA, EM, TDEC, and EPA. Now we're figuring out how to bring in other partners, both private and NNSA, to get these things accomplished. And we're having to figure out new ways of doing work. So we're getting some of the work that is currently underway that is really is helpful is on the left is the Alpha 2. We've driven by that. It actually looks even different from that today. There's less of the building than that left. And then once we're done with that, we move on to the Beta 1 building, which is down the road a little bit. And will be fairly similar. It has a few different, it's after war use, post-war uses were a little different than what Alpha 2s were. So some of the things we've run into in there are a little different, but for the most part, the buildings were constructed the same sort of, it'll be the same sort of timetable to get that one down. And both of those, Y-12 has already expressed an interest in the footprint even before the building's down. So they would like us to get done as fast as we can, both of these. Probably one of the biggest projects besides our on-site disposal facility is what we call the Outfall 200 mercury treatment facility. This will be built to capture water from the west end of Y-12, where the creek comes out of the ground. There will be this area called the headworks. It'll capture the creek water, run it through what's called a decrit system, which is in this. It'll then gravity feed into this container or this cell, pool. There will be a large pump here that then will pump the water down through a pipeline to this facility. This is what we call the main treatment facility, mercury treatment facility. This is where the water that has had the solids removed, it'll be treated to remove the dissolved mercury from the water. It'll be basically running it through a resin system. We're currently looking at this project, trying to re-baseline it to determine how much longer it'll take us to finish that. And part of that is we need this facility to be operational before we can begin demolition of facilities in the west, what's called the West End Mercury area. Basically, there are three large buildings, Beta 4, Alpha 5, Alpha 4, that need to be taken down to enable Y-12 to continue their mission. To do that, we have to have this facility operational. It shows some of the problems, the challenges of integrating the cleanup with construction and Y-12's mission. And then once we get that done, so real quickly, hopefully, is our wrap up is ETP. We want to finish there to be able to deliver not only to the National Park Service, a site useful for them, but also a site that is useful for future industrial uses. We've already started that. The outer areas will be transferred for conservation and recreational. That's the Black Oak Ridge Conservation Easement and other areas. Or now get the land cleared so that they can continue their mission without the risk of these old facilities endangering their new high science facilities. And then at Y12, similar, get the property cleared so that Y12 can reuse the property to continue their mission. Leave. That is it for the overview. Any questions on that? Yeah. I'll turn the fire hose off here in a minute. I promise. Okay.
Do we have any questions on lunch?
Are we gonna get copies of that? Your presentation?
Yes,
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
and the next part
Yes.
as well.
Will you give that?
It's on, it should be on the same.
Use it. I'll use it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. There it is.
Okay.
So part of what we do is for the annual planning meeting is we propose topics that each of us, DOE, TDEC, and EPA, think I'm going to present the topics that DOE thinks that are proposing for you all to discuss in the coming year. And then EPA and TDEC have an opportunity to do the same. Topic number one, these are not in order of priority again, but this is just the order of presenting them. First one will be do a presentation and inform you all about how we do public involvement. Not just, not just with SSAB, but our whole cleanup process, there are, in that process, there are requirements for public involvement. For instance, Eric mentioned the 4 rods that we have. Each one of those rods require, before you do a rod, there's a thing called a proposed plan. We present that at a meeting to the public. This is all required. And then the public has a set amount of time to give us comments on those proposed plans. And then in the rod, we have to respond to those comments. That's one phase. In addition to that, here locally, we have taken the opportunity to actually, beyond SSAB, to have public meetings where we call them information centers, information meetings where we present, basically, this is what we're working on right now. We've had several, a couple of them were at the Scarborough Center in Oak Ridge. We've had one out in Roane County. We've also had one out in Anderson County. We try to get to all the local communities that we can. So that is one topic. Ben Williams, our communications point of contact, will probably do that presentation. Next topic, as I mentioned earlier, have ICE Tech come in and do a presentation on the U-233 disposition and how that's working. Should cover this earlier. This is a really important project for a variety of reasons. One, it's getting rid of a very difficult waste for us to deal with. The other is, because of its nature, U-233 requires a level of security that is pretty significant. It costs a lot to guard this material, the facility that it's in, and it requires some security processes that make it less than easy sometimes to get into Orono. And Orono would very much like to be more of an open campus. So there's not only a cost savings as far as the reductions in security, but it also would benefit Orono in the ability for them to have more open campus and have visitors and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to getting this material gone. Third topic is, as we mentioned before, would be we do this every year, is a presentation on making sure that overall that we have sufficient waste disposal capacity. For those that have been here before, for a while, you've seen this several times. We do this every year. And the reason we do it is that's how important this is to us. This is a critical part. One of the most critical parts of our cleanup is to have this ability. Because if we don't, everything stops and things get really bad. The fourth topic, and this is the one that we really need, we need to have with you for you to give us a recommendation on, is our budget. And for those, we've done that every year. Fifth one is presentation on removing excess facilities, as we talked about at Y12 and Ornell. There are a lot of these old facilities that we have to get rid of to enable future mission needs there and to remove risk to current mission. So we'll have a presentation on that. Actually, I think we just had that. That was one of our last presentations. So we'll do that again next year. And then last, we have a presentation, a much more deeper dive into the reindustrialization and historic preservation that's taking place. More so than me just showing you a map and pointing. Actually have the folks come in who deal with this and explain the process, where we can go in the future, things like that. And those are the ones that we're proposing. One that you may have noticed that isn't on here is groundwater. We've done that annually every year. We did not do it this year, and we're actually proposing not to do it again next year. The reason is it's not that it's any less important, but groundwater projects move slowly. Takes a while to get them implemented, and once they're implemented, it takes a while to get the monitoring data. And then once you have that, it takes a while to implement a remedy. We have begun that process, but there's really, based compared to where the last time we talked to you all about that, not a lot's happened. So we felt that some of these other topics would be a better use of your time. So if you, at any time, if you ever have questions about the groundwater, please feel free to ask. I mean, we're here to answer your questions, but we're not proposing to do a full presentation on this time. And with that, that is our last topic. Yes. No.
So now, the suggestions from the agencies, if they have any.
Any suggestions by EPA?
I don't have any questions. I mean, one of our agency's concerns is Mercury and the Outfall 200 project. So just getting that. Regoing is our primary concern at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Samantha. Peter?
I concur with Samantha. I think the first state of Tennessee Alpha 200 is very important. Also for Mercury, we are very much interested in discussion on treatment and disposal of mercury-bearing waste from cleanup. In addition, one of the topics that I would like to present, which wasn't before discussed, is finding a way to engage a younger generation on cleanup levels, on land use criteria and restrictions of use. We have a cleanup ongoing for so many years. It's going to be going in the future for so many years. We have to engage the local younger generation, maybe in going to schools, and trying to bridge to them the idea, this is what happened, that was the level of contamination, that's how we clean the land. This is the use, which is, I guess, designated. We all understand that sometimes the use of land can change. There might be some other requirements, some other needs. How this is going to affect the level of cleanup that was, presented and approved by EPA, TDEC, and DOE. The other topic I would like to have some discussion on is potential engagement in projects prioritization prior to formulating budget request. So in the past, we had presentations from DOE on budget requests, SSAB and Fed EPA, TDEC supporting DOE requests. However, some initial engagement in prioritization of the projects prior to that final request, yeah, I think would be very helpful.
Like to open this up to members of the board. Do you have any suggestions?
This is the teacher sitting here. Within public involvement, can there be anything that Christoph is asking for to get students? Probably at the secondary level or Rhone State level or somewhere.
I know.
Special invitations to presentations or something. I mean, when you do a presentation, like you said in Roane County, do you make a special effort to reach to that 18-year-old high school bunch?
Not specifically, we have not.
Now, we do as part of trying to get board members.
I know that, yeah.
Active outreach there. We used to have students actually sit in on the board.
I
Oak Ridge.
you had students.
We quit getting responses from the schools. They didn't have students that were interested, so.
It may have been who was doing the asking. I just said in a city council, I observed city council, I just said in a city council meeting where 14 young people applied for 2 positions on their environmental advisory board. So somebody either gave extra credit or did something to get them to move.
I know one thing that's happening at the University of Tennessee. I know, to Christoph's point, they do have a decontamination and decommissioning curriculum. And they expose their students, the ones that are interested in learning about how to do the cleanup of these nuclear legacy facilities. But I like your point, you know, the whole EM process, the circular process is something that should be looked at that level and high school. So,
How do you do it?
you know, I can bring it up certainly in the circles I deal with the university about how we can look at the EM program and how it's conducted and what the past history has shown and what the future holds.
And Harold, I'm not going 300 bucks because I was there too.
Yeah.
Harold and I actually did presentations
Yeah.
at UT. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the challenges is getting people to attend.
Yeah.
And Harold did a great job getting, because Harold bought a lot of pizza.
Yeah.
And I
Still
got
do.
them to attend. It is a tough crowd to do basically this presentation to and get them interested.
Yeah.
This is not, I kind of have that, in somewhat, this is not glamorous work. You know, it's not a big shiny super collider or, you know, anything like that. This is dirty looking and it is dirty work.
But it's enduring.
It is.
And that's the
Yeah,
thing
it
that
is definitely,
the
there are
person's
careers, you
yours
can
too.
easily have a career.
Yeah.
Full career in this field.
Oh, yeah.
It is a, you know, one of the things we talked, this is a multi-generational cleanup.
Yeah.
It's going to take generations to do this. So,
And I think that's probably part of the program or the problem, because unless you work in the DOE world, you have, I mean, it's a different universe. And I don't think people outside of that universe understand all the different interactions you have to have with all these different entities in order to make something happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the, one of the biggest obstacles that they face is the fact that, yeah, well, I'm going to build a house. I can, you know, plan it, talk to the architect and boom, we're done. And it's going to take 4 or 5 years here to do something like that.
another challenge we have is, and this has actually gotten worse over time. And then we've talked about this here in Oak Ridge. There was a time in Oak Ridge, you could drive down Bear Creek Road, you could drive right past Y12. You could see everything that was going on. You could drive right past ETTP. You could see all the stuff going on. Couldn't drive in, but you could see it. Or no, you could drive down Bethel Valley Road and drive right past all the buildings. You can't do that anymore for a variety of reasons. And it's very hard to, it's very difficult to convince people that there's something important going on when they can't see
Can't
it.
see it.
I can show you pictures all day long, but those pictures, for those who've been on the tour, you know, it's
Different,
it's
yeah.
very different when you get out and see it in real life. And we are not allowed to do that. And it makes it, it is a challenge, you know, when we talk about our public outreach, that is one of the big things we try to accomplish is, you know, reaching out to as many people as we can. I think it was the proposed plan for the EMDF meeting. We sent postcards to every mailing address in the city announcing that meeting. And I think we had, you know, this city at the time was almost 30,000 people. And I think we had 200 people show up, most of which were contractors. People who worked for DOE who had a vested interest. You know, the number of people from the public who showed up was not many. You know, that's after sending out, I think it was 12,000 postcards announcing it.
You got jobs now, though. That's the hook now.
It is. It is.
You just talked about several thousand.
The high school, I think, has a new program in their CTE section that deals with nuclear.
Mhm.
So it's new this year. My son's a senior, so I didn't look at any of the stuff because he can't.
You can't play.
But I was talking to the teacher that is teaching it, so I can ask her about it.
We welcome all the help we can get reaching
Maybe she can
teenagers.
get the kids to come
To that class to think about.
to one of these meetings for some extra.
That'd be great. I
So
really would.
I was trying to find it in here in my email. I can't find it in here.
Yeah,
can-
and I'm also available anytime to talk to any students, you know, in high school or college or even elementary school about circling the cleanup process.
And I can vouch as a current college student, there is interest.
Yeah.
And I do talk with a lot of potential, mostly I'll be biased, I'm, you know, chemistry major. So I ask mostly the chemistry majors and even the physics majors and some of the engineering folks, and there is growing interest. But they do know, like Roger, like you said, you're not designing the next generation of, you know, nuclear reactors or the fuel or anything, but they understand the mission.
Yeah, and
That's
my
right.
degree is in chemistry, so I can relate to that.
Sort of like we were talking about, unfortunately, what we do here doesn't get on the front of Time magazine. Makes it a little more challenging, but anyway. Excellent.
Shelley, do we have any comments or suggestions online?
I have not received any online. I don't know if we want to go ahead and do public comment and questions, or did we also advocate time for just members to share suggestions. I don't know if the questions have covered that. Do you all feel so?
Yeah.
I for one, understand the slowdown on groundwater discussion. And that makes perfect sense to me, that it's not, you know, a black box that's being stuck over in the corner.
It's tortoise in the hair. And it's the tortoise we're watching, so.
We have members of the public who have questions about the presentation. I would think we could move on.
Okay. So next order of business is we're gonna talk about the process and plan for issue groups and recommendation. And I'm gonna open this up to Melissa.
So Roger's gone over our topics. DOE is responsible for putting your work plan together. So we will go back and assign the topics to a month, put put our speakers and that type of thing, and then we'll issue out a work plan. We'll have to run it by headquarters again. While they've approved our topics, we have to send the final plan to them, but then we will get you out a work plan that has it laid out per each month, what you're going to be doing. When you have the topics, the one thing we want you to start looking at is which issue groups you want to be involved in. We recommend everybody be on the budget one because that is one we're definitely going to require a recommendation. But then if there's another topic that you're interested in, you need to let Shelley and Sarah know that you're interested, and we will add you to that issue group so that as we have that topic of conversation, we have that that presentation, you will then be part of a communication process on that presentation for that month. And they'll be back and forth between you and the other issue members to discuss, you know, if you think you want to do a recommendation, to ask extra questions, that type of thing. So that's kind of what we move from once we do the presentation, the issue group, they'll have communications amongst each other to where they look at that presentation in detail. They decide if they want to do a recommendation. Then in your package, there is this picture. She's got it showing on the pointer right now. This kind of is a graphical presentation of how you go about doing a recommendation, how you look at it. You decide if you want to do a recommendation on a particular topic. For the budget one, like I said, we require it. Any other presentation, we don't require, but you are allowed to do any kind of any type of recommendation on any of the topics. That is your decision. So then what you do is the issue group will decide to have an issue manager. That issue manager will work within, usually it's handled via email. You talk about it, you decide if you want to do a recommendation. If you decide to do a recommendation, what you'll do is you'll draft that recommendation. It's not all on you to draft that recommendation. What you do is you will have help of our staff. They help you with the background to help you put that piece of the recommendation together. And then you usually have whatever your little piece that you want to do, what your recommendations are listed in that document. Then once you have the recommendation drafted, it comes to an EM stewardship meeting. The whole EM stewardship then weighs in on your recommendation, and there's back and forth for you to tailor it to what exactly you want to say. Once you get that recommendation written, it then goes to the executive committee. The executive committee looks at that recommendation, decides if they wanted to present it to the whole board. Then it goes to the board, and at the board, they look at the recommendation and then they vote whether you want to go ahead and submit it to DOE. Then when you submit that recommendation to DOE, we get our subject matter experts to look at your recommendation, and then we provide a response back to you on that recommendation. Now, the budget one is slightly different. That's the one we're going to be voting on tonight that y'all been working on the past few months. That one actually goes to headquarters and is submitted as part of our budget submission. So once y'all vote on that and approve it, we will send that to our budget person, Karen Thompson, who is our acting project controls person right now. And she will then make sure that gets sent to headquarters. And then headquarters will send back a response on your recommendation. So that just kind of gives you a little brief synopsis on how you handle the recommendations. And we wanted to point this out because there had been a lot of questions when we were doing the budget one on how we, do that. So we just wanted to kind of go in detail a little bit about that process. So where we are in the process now is we're going to take the topics back and put it together in the work plan that you normally see. That's that multicolored document that you get that has everything broken down by the months. And so when you get that, we'll sign off on that in October. When you do that, we want you to look at it and see which issue groups you want to be a part of. We're going to automatically put you on the budget one because everybody needs to be involved in that one. Well, that is, because it's a requirement and because that's the easiest way for you to see how the issue groups work, how you draft a recommendation. And a lot of times when you're involved in one and you actually draft a recommendation, it makes it a lot easier for you to do a recommendation on another one. So that's why we tried to put you on that one so that you kind of go through that process. All of y'all were involved in this last one that we're getting ready to vote on tonight. So you've had a little bit of experience, and you can see that we don't just say, hey, you've got to come up with a 3-page recommendation. We help you along the way to help you tailor what you want to say in that recommendation. It's your recommendation, but we try to help you put it in a format to where it is understandable for everybody in the group. So does anybody have any questions on the recommendation process?
We did have one question online with someone having some technical difficulties, and I'm gonna see if they can pop in now.
Yeah, sorry, this is Chris. It was actually a question before this started. I had a question for Roger on the youth, used to when I was in school, we had a field trip, and I don't know if they've stopped that altogether now to kind of get youth involved, or because that was, it seems like was a good outreach.
I don't know about in the field trips and stuff. Now, we do a lot of stuff internally with like elementary schools. We go do STEM nights. We have a lot of our younger staff like Leah and Abby, who's online, who have gone and participated in a lot of STEM activities with local high schools. We've had individuals that go to UT and are like some of their career day things, and they participate in that. But I don't know about field trips. Not since I've been here, I've not been involved in field trips that we do with the local schools.
Do they still do the museum tours? I know those had paused for a while.
And that's what I wondered, if that's the field trips were through the museum, is what that might have been. But I'm not sure, Chris.
We went out to the, I don't remember what building it was. We've not been to it, but I just remember going out kind of on those field trips when I was in school. So I don't know, I mean, it was pretty interesting then, and it just seemed like it probably would be I know now their security stuff is different, but I was curious about that because that was something that I really think it was a good outreach, or it would be to Christoph's point. So just curious about it.
Well, I do know, like when I first came here at DOE, Office of Science used to take all the new employees out, and I think they did do some outreach with some schools, but EM wasn't involved in that at the time. So I'm not sure of Office of Science, if the people who were involved in those tours, if they're still here or not. But it's something we could probably look into.
Okay, all right, thank you.
At least at a minimum, be able to do something at ETTP, which does not have the security issues that we have to deal with at ORNL.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Well, I do know that they do have tours through AMC.
Yes.
They are still doing them right now, I believe. They only let you go into ORNL to see the supercomputer. I think last year or the year before that, they let you go in and see the graphite reactor. But I think they change it every other year. Okay, I'm gonna open this up for public comment.
We do have one person with public comment. Was there, if you want to talk?
Oh, yes, I thought I was about to give the rebuttal to the State of the Union. I'm Luther Gibson. I was the 5th chair of the Scientific Advisory Board from August 2000 to August 2002. And in my letter to Amy, there's more detailed biography about me. I'll dispense with some of the things about how the board's operated and comments on that, and I'll just jump right into some topics. And one of the biggest ideas I've got is, I think there's a real question for the need for the eventual transition of ETTP to legacy management. In their most recent update, they projected FY 2032 But in some of the earlier updates, it had been back as far as FY 29. And they say they do due diligence by working on sites as much as 5 years ahead of transition dates. But given that Chuck Fleischer recently said in an interview that about 30 to 40 years of cleanup remain in Oak Ridge, and not to mention that we've got a local DOE presence here beyond the immediate future or foreseeable future, any transition to a TLM should be reconsidered. We've got 4 federal managers in here at Oak Ridge already. We've got Office of Science Consolidated Service Center, the ORNL site office, OREM, and the 112 site office reporting directly to headquarters. And from the community standpoint, it's probably not good to have another one with overlapping or even gaping authority and accountability to deal with. So I'd like to see it. I did get some traction. I'll be talking about in other forums. And I'm not going to go through all these other topics here, but I do have some notes on some of them. Regarding the site treatment plan, the Energy and Water Development and related agencies appropriation bill for 2026 encourages the department to provide sufficient continuous funding to eliminate the Oak Ridge contaminated shields expeditiously. So you've got your marching orders, Eric, and it's in the appropriations bill. As far as excess facilities, Watrel and ORNL, I think we need to understand some of the interfaces better with ORNL and Watrel, and some of the other SSABs have even requested availability of officials from NNSA to liaise with on unclassified activities. So I think that'd be a good idea here to see more NNSA interfaces, and we also request that the Office of Science as well, because they're to be coordinated with and may be slowing down the work in some cases, and they can explain it to us better. As to the environmental management disposal facility, 6 environmental public interest community groups just filed a lawsuit in the Federal District Court, the District of Columbia, over approval of it. So we'll see where that goes. On the mercury treatment facility, there's a need to understand the cost and schedule impacts of the new baseline. And also there's been some discussion I've seen in the regular correspondence with the state, insisting on more monitoring, during some of the pre-demolition activities, as the project gets delayed. So that's the kind of information we need to hear more at the briefings, I think. There's a couple of information systems that I'm very concerned about that are used by headquarters and not paid a lot of attention with here locally. And they're the Waste Information Management System by the University of Florida, and the tracking and restoration and closure application maintained by Pacific Northwest National Laboratory on groundwater plumes. That one in particular, they need to perhaps put a simpler focus on it so they can present the plumes and list the technologies being implemented. Oak Ridge Day has never gotten into the thing. It would be useful if it was, and I think it's just too onerous to maintain. Now emergency management is a reservation-wide responsibility, and EM has a small part. But if you see this map in here, if you live and work in here, you might have to take shelter or evacuate due to a potential, although unlikely event in Watrel or Roaranil. And we're going to be having nuclear facilities within these zones, which may or may not have their own EPZs, depending on their final accident analysis. But I think there's not been enough attention given to emergency management, public communication, and what to do in case of an emergency. There's not been public outreach in years on that. The annual site environmental report is another thing that we should follow more closely. In fact, more monitoring results. I like to hear more about actual monitoring results. The budget and what the budget is for the monitoring. It's got to be significant, and maybe decisions could emerge on what to monitor and sample. As trends change and things. Okay, I have a comment here later on about it's about transfer of property, and essentially there's issues that some new owners that received property through expedited transfers may not be fully aware of what happened on the land in the past and the implications of their land use controls and restrictions. And the activities of some of these new owners and tenants have created their own new environmental issues. Carbon Rivers, for example. White Ring Scrapyard is started out with as an accelerated project with a real investigation work plan, and I still don't understand how a time-critical removal action fits the definition of what's occurring there. And then Bear Creek Burial Grounds has always been one of those things just out in the future, you know, that I think the states had a lot of concern about. And there's a real investigation work plan, you know, it's activity starting there, you know, that's not talked about a lot in here. And then we have the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. Well, folks, it got this was the bill that would provide a compassionate compensation to people that lived and worked in an area where they got exposed to Manhattan waste. And you know, Josh Hawley could see they got that crammed into the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and it now covers. It also now covers with Peace Alliance and others lobbying. It got included in the Oak Ridge and surrounding zip codes got included in that. And well, I'm saying that I'm not saying that the public health assessments done in the past, you know, would support that. There is some perhaps public relations, you know, thing to consider there when the guidance comes out and claims people start filing for claims and you know, perhaps some you know, if you live in an area for 2 years since 1949 and get a $50,000 claim for cancer, that does reflect on the community, you know, in some way. You know, so there's, you know, we're always trying to, you know, I think it's something from a public relations standpoint to be concerned about. And as far as technology development, I know we've had exposure to the aquatic laboratory people, but it'd be nice to be able to meet the other technology principal investigators and, you know, have more contact and, you know, with them as well as other contractor personnel, not just hear from the DOE portfolio managers. And then PFAs or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. This is what's got me baffled. There's many aspects to it, you know, including the identification of the compounds, whether stored material is that or not, and contamination of environmental media and health effects from exposure. And whether with the new drinking water regulations, does that mean we've got to revisit the prior remediation goals that were based on drinking water standards at some point? And then we have White Oak Creek, which is I guess a classic example of material being managed in place. You know, the dam holds back the sediments, but if they would ever get out, and they could the cities of Kingston, Spring City, and Rockwood draw their drinking water supply downstream. Public health assessments done by Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry in the past indicated that releases, you know, ongoing releases were not a problem, or future releases not likely to be a problem. However, if there was a catastrophic dam failure, that might be a different matter, and that wasn't considered then. There are inspections of the dam probably, but you know, dam inspections are hard to come by because they might, you know, they're subject to sensitivity and perhaps even malevolent act considerations. And then on the final record of decisions, I'd like to take some of these final record of decisions that are way out in the future and kind of work backwards, you know, fill in a puzzle on how it fits with some of the current activities. You know, we hear a lot about the win-wins we're doing today, you know, but I like to look back to the future and kind of work backward a bit. So these are my ideas, and they're in the packet to read. So now thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Luther. Do we have any comments online, Sean?
No.
So if there's no more comments, that would conclude our meeting.
The presentation.
Presentation. part of the stuff. So moving on to board business. So moving on to update on the EM stewardship. I gotta say, the most recent meeting, we did the budget. I am very proud of all of you. We really went deep into it, and I think we have a very good product, but if there's any recommendations or suggestions that you would all like to add right now.
I enjoyed that. I thought it was
It's great.
really
It's
good.
great.
Yeah.
We were dancing.
So if there's no additions to the recommendation, motion to vote on.
Is there any discussion on the recommendation?
Yeah, he said that. He just didn't hear him.
I just heard, I heard if there's none, like.
It's gotta be
Sorry.
positive.
Any discussion?
I move that we accept the recommendation as written.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objection? Motion carries. All right. So moving on to officer nominations update, I'll hand this over to Melissa.
Yes, so we announced about the officer elections at the May 25th meeting. Many people have communicated with Sarah and Shelley about who would be interested in serving. Right now, our slate of candidates are for chair, Chris Bartholomew. He's online right now. He's currently our vice chair. He's been a member of the board since 2022. For our vice chair, we've got Charles Moore. Charles is currently a stewardship co-chair and has been a member of the board since 2023. And then our secretary is Kelly Thompson. Kelly's been a member of the board since 2024. Now, as a reminder, we'll be voting on this in October. So this is our current slate, but this does not mean that we can't have additional people nominated at the October meeting. However, if you choose to nominate somebody at the October meeting, you need to have their permission if they are willing to run. But providing that no one else, is nominated, this is our current slate, and we'll be voting on this in October. And then for the EM Stewardship Committee meeting, those co-chairs will also attend our executive meetings, and the co-chairs are Laura Clark, Otto Mertz. So both of them are here though, and that would be voted at our next EM Stewardship meeting. So those elected officers will start meeting at our executive meeting, which after they're voted into office, which is the first Wednesday of every month. And that usually happens at 4 o'clock, and it's a virtual meeting. It's short, but it's usually short. Is there anything else I need to?
We could change that time also based on the new officers.
Their work schedule.
That's just what's worked for us with the current group.
Thank you, Melissa. Next is the June meeting minutes. Eric?
I believe we have one name added to the minutes, which was inadvertently left out of attendees, sorry. And any other corrections of minutes I've not heard.
And
Motion
motion to approve the minutes.
as, since they were modified, I guess we need a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes. Motion carries.
Okay.
We're gonna have to actually vote, like.
Say what?
We have to vote. We have to vote because we changed it, I think.
One second and then.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Yeah.
So. It's okay. This is just a reminder that the September meetings have been canceled, and the next meeting will be October 8th. So
Executive.
No, that will be,
Is that a board
it's
meeting?
an actual board meeting
Must be earlier.
because the.
Yeah, it's
First Wednesday. Second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday.
second Wednesday. October 1st falls on, I think, Wednesday, the
Yeah.
first Wednesday.
The Wednesday.
Executive meeting will be on October 1st. And a clarification, we're not really canceling a September meeting. We didn't really have one scheduled to start with. We had to bump all of our meetings because of the new administration, and we just chose not to pop the groundwater into September since we didn't have an update.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So it's just an empty swamp.
There's nothing else. Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Aye.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Motion carries.
Get your sweater.